We're going to be taking a look at the tremendous amount of growth that we've all been seeing and how crucial growing together is to make it through the changes that we're all experiencing today. We're going to be answering questions at the end of our session, so please feel free to submit your questions through the chat portal and we'll make sure we get to them if we have the time. Our presenters today are Jennifer Mitchell, Senior Director of Content Development for NTEA, the Work Truck Association, representing more than 2,000 companies in the commercial truck industry. We have Ann Brodette, SVP of Sales, Eastern Region for Mitsubishi HC Capital America Inc., a commercial finance lending company that specializes in commercial vehicles from Class 1 through 8 and upfits. And Dania Rich Spencer, VP Automotive and Mobility at Escalent, a data analytics and advisory firm. I'm going to hand it over to these ladies to go ahead and give us a quick introduction and explain a little bit more about themselves. So Jennifer, let's go ahead and start with you.
Thanks, Lauren, and hi, everybody. As Lauren mentioned, I am Jennifer Mitchell. I am the Senior Director of Content Development here at the NTEA. Within my role, I am in charge of all of our educational content and programming for our live events and then content development within the association. So if you've ever attended the Work Truck Show and all of our concurrent education sessions and speakers, I'm responsible for cultivating all of that content and bringing it forward to our events. I've been in this industry in automotive for about 10 years, most of which have been in the commercial vehicle space. I a lot of times tell people I think I fell into this space and then I learned I really loved it. I love the people, the products, and I don't think I'll ever leave just because I find the space really fascinating. The work that we do is really important. So glad to be here today and excited to be on the panel.
Thanks, Jennifer. I think that's a story a lot of us can relate to with falling into fleet and never wanting to leave. That's fantastic. Next, Anne, let's tell everybody a little
Hi.
bit about yourself.
Hi, guys. I'm Ann Brodette. I'm Senior Vice President over at Mitsubishi HC Capital America, which is the largest independent finance company in North America now. So we recently went through a merger back in April, and we merged three different companies together. And this topic is so perfect for us because growth is what we need to do. So if we just keep doing the same thing, we will never meet the very big expectations that Japan has for us. So my job is to keep the transportation sales team motivated, figure out creative ways to grow because we're going to have to do it exponentially. I think they have like a $7.8 billion target for us this year. So this is all about growth for us.
Those are some big goals you've got to hit there. Thank you so much. And Dania, give us a little background on yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. Hello, everybody. I'm Dania Rich Spencer with Escalent, and as Lauren said, Escalent is a data analytics and advisory firm. We're located just outside of Detroit. I am a strategic advisor to our Fleet Advisory Hub, and you might be thinking, what in the world is a Fleet Advisory Hub? Well, it is a group of dedicated fleet decision makers representing about 10,000 companies and over 1 million vehicles. And we engage with them via surveys and qualitative discussions regularly and frequently, usually once or twice a month, on a variety of topics, including emerging technologies and business challenges that they have with their business and how they're running their trucks, as well as challenges with the industry overall and how they see the future. So we are very, very fortunate to be able to tap into these folks and learn golden nuggets of what their challenges are and what their plans are. And I'm very pleased to share some of those insights and some of those golden nuggets with you today. So thank you.
Thank you for all the introductions. So I'm sure everyone's eager to get started. So we're going to go ahead and jump right on in. You can't look ahead without understanding first where we started. I know in the 17 years that I've been in the commercial vehicle industry myself, I've witnessed a lot of change from the vehicles to the technology to the people. I'd love to dig in more into some of the general trends you guys are all seeing today that kind of brought us to where we are. So, Anne, let's start with you. What are you seeing related to some of the challenges on the financial side?
Well, I'm sure everybody knows the number one challenge in finance, Taylor Swift. No, high interest rates, right? So it's on everybody's mind. It's everything that we talk about all the time. So it's a huge challenge for us. So what we're seeing, that trend with high interest rates, what happens, there's just, it cascades into all kinds of issues. So first of all, customers are delaying purchasing because they're wondering what the feds are going to do next. So maybe rates will go down at the beginning of the year. So we're seeing some holdback on equipment purchasing. That hurts the dealerships. It hurts us. And then we see a lot of people paying cash. So fleets are using their money instead of saving it for potentially things that might happen down the road, or expansion, or just keeping some buffered, some reserves on hand. They're using cash because the interest rates are so high. So that's tough for the dealership. They're losing out of finance income there. It's not great for the customers in those fleets. And it's certainly not great for us because we'll all be out of a job if everybody pays cash. A few other trends that we are seeing are that banks and lenders are moving out of the transportation space, albeit temporarily, but it's very risky right now. So it's an incredible rate of defaults, and a lot of repos are coming back. So you'll see a lot of the big banks, they're just going to exit completely. Some are just going to pull back halfway and say, okay, we're going to finance, but we're only going to finance really tough customers. So with less money in the industry right now, the trend, it's tough. So lenders are tightening their credit boxes, and it's a little bit harder for fleets and other people to get some loans. So there's a lot of negative trends going on right now. We're hoping that that's going to kind of switch soon.
Thanks for the insight. Definitely sounds like a lot more risk right now, as you
Yes,
mentioned, and those are some huge things for commercial businesses when they need to get the vehicles replaced and keep their businesses running every
right,
day. So that's really
right.
interesting. Dania, what about from your point of view?
Yeah, so there's a lot of kind of general trends that we're still hearing about. You hear about ACEs, right? Autonomy and connected, and electric and shared, and Ann talks about risk, and within those four pillars, the extent that each pillar contributes to growth and opportunities and new ways of doing things is not equal. You hear a lot about electrification, and there's a lot of regulation, um, but it's not there yet, and companies are struggling with, how do I balance that risk? They know that eventually they've got to go to rolling in electric vehicles into their fleet. They're either going to be forced to, or it makes economic sense at a certain point. But right now, it's all about balancing that risk of, do I roll in an electric vehicle? Do I start the transition to electrified fleet? Or is that going to burn me in the long run because the infrastructure isn't there? The range is overstated. The cost is understated. So there's a lot of risk in making those transitions. But I would say, when you think about those ACEs pillars, it's the C that really is key. It's the connected pillar, because that's what's going to generate the data that is going to be able to be leveraged to improve the efficiency, the productivity, increase the opportunity for growth through the leverage of data. You also are hearing a lot about AI, right? It just seems like everything is AI. Well, predictive analytics is a real thing, and that's what the data is going to enable fleets to do. You're going to be able to, prevent your downtime, and you're going to be able to understand driving behavior better, and you're going to be able to improve productivity and all of that. But it's the connectivity that is going to allow you to do that, and that's going to lead to more opportunity and better business than, say, autonomy. Autonomy is definitely softening. We ask our fleet advisory hub members a lot about autonomy and what they think, and that's certainly softening. We're just not there yet. and they're going to have bigger issues on their plate trying to electrify than to worry about self-driving vehicles. So those ACES pillars, they're not equal today, and we'll see what happens.
I think you said something really interesting, and that was the word balance. And I think that that is very, very key. As AI is here, and it's a part of everything we're doing. But it doesn't need to be everything. But it can't be ignored. It's that balance and looking at it from as many different points of view and perspectives, and how it can be, the most helpful and beneficial for what we're working on today. That's very, very interesting. So, Jennifer, what are you seeing today, and kind of the trends and where we're at right now?
Yeah, so I think both points that both ladies before me made, kind of some of both of those sectors, the pillars, and then, both the economy. There's a great demand for practical and applicable education and learning tools from our members in the industry. They need to keep up with all of the new technologies, what the data is telling us about, how to plan for your business futures and forecasting. So in utilizing all those tools and their network connections, just to really give them the best leg up to continue their business in kind of this new and uncertain times of just new technologies, new, data, economics, all of the above. So it's just really them kind of learning and growing and making sure that they're kind of up to speed on all the latest and greatest as they can be.
And again, growth, the topic of, the session and the conference, right there to close that out. Historically, the sectors that you women here are representing today have been more siloed, with a lot of competition. But as time has passed, we're becoming far more connected, as Dania mentioned, than ever before. So this panel, I think, is a great example of these four very different segments working together for that common goal. We know growth is tough when you're going about it all by yourself in an industry that has been completely disrupted from what we've seen just a few years ago. I'd love to dig more into connections and growing connections that we're starting to see. Tanya, we start this one with you. How are you seeing more connections in your industry?
Well, I've been doing this for a long time, too long that I really want to admit. But we are seeing there are just more and more partnerships. Um, OEMs in the past have partnered with other OEMs, their competitors, through joint ventures, but not at this level. You are seeing Tesla opening up their charging network to a handful of OEMs: Ford, GM, Mercedes. In the case of electrification, it's almost like unless everybody wins, nobody wins. And in this case, Tesla is opening up their proprietary network of charging to allow their competitors, their direct competitors, Ford is a direct competitor of Tesla, to allow for that stellar EV ownership experience. Because we know whether it's an ICE vehicle or it's an electric vehicle, if you do not have a rewarding, appealing, satisfactory vehicle ownership experience, not just a sales, not just a service, but the whole life cycle of the vehicle, there will be a defection. So we are seeing OEMs that are traditional competitors coming together for the good of the industry, really at historic levels. You're also seeing um, OEMs partner with battery producers. Just recently, Toyota and LG Energy Solutions coming together to produce batteries. GM also has partnerships. You also see partnerships with utilities. Right. In terms of electrification, it's like all the planets have to align: the vehicle, the charging, the grid, service, that they all have to come together to give the consumer a sense of comfort and confidence that they're not going to be stranded, that it's not going to cost an arm and a leg to repair the vehicle. All of those things need to come together seamlessly. And the utility, the grid, the energy providers, of course, that's a big piece here. And Perhaps the OEMs recognize that maybe the utility companies were a bit slow, and so maybe that partnership um, is facilitating that aspect of the ecosystem. So, again, I don't think in history where you have an OEM and DTE and Detroit partnering to ensure that a vehicle ownership experience is stellar. So no single person can do it. We have to be collaborative. We have to be willing to take on a little bit of risk, you know, and balance that type of execution. So, do I think these partnerships are going to go away in the future? To a certain extent, they will probably normalize, but then there will probably be new partnerships that I'm not smart enough to figure out today. So, partnerships is the thing.
Well, if you can't figure it out, I'm not sure who can. And I'm hearing the words, risk, balance, connected. It all is kind of coming together and telling the story. And I know, Work Truck Week, it's an event I haven't missed. I won't miss. It's something that has been such an integral part of the commercial vehicle business. And one of the things I've always seen there are the connections, are those partnerships and the friendly competition that has always blown my mind between telematics providers and OEMs giving each other a high five or a hard time, having a talk and a conversation. And so, Jennifer, from your point of view, how are you seeing some more connections and growth in the industries that you've been working with?
Yeah, I think you took some of my my comments right away. Just looking at our, the events, the Work Truck Week in particular. We have a highly we work in a highly competitive industry. Our members and attendees of the show are all fierce competitors, but at the end of the day, they come together at industry events like that and they learn and they network together. Because I think at the end of the day, they all have the best interests of our industry at heart. Like they all are working towards that common goal. So they come together. Multi-stage manufacturers have to work together to, from spec of a vehicle to completion to get a vehicle on the road that meet their end users and customers needs. And so I think I don't know if that's necessarily new for our side of the industry, just because I think they've always had to come together and collaborate. But I think in this kind of ever-changing world, that's just becoming that much more important, and I think much more visible because those partnerships are becoming a bit more of like the story behind how things are getting done, how these technology advancements are happening. But yeah, I think you can see it in person in some of those cases where you're like, wow, these two companies are, that they are competitors on paper, but when you come together in certain spaces, that they are truly working together and coming together to make this industry the best that it can be, and we all kind of know that end goal and purpose, and I think that kind of always wins beyond just the competition.
And that's a great point. It's that end goal of why we're all working together and why we're partnering and growing together. It is to create and to support the fleets and the businesses that are doing these jobs every day and keeping us running and moving and the food on our table. So that's really important. Anne, what are some insights that you have?
Yeah, so for I guess what I would talk about, besides what the ladies just brilliantly discussed, is really mergers that are happening right now in the industry. So not just I'm thinking about connections with competitors, but also connections within companies. So every there's so many different mergers with fleets going on right now, lenders, OEMs, dealerships, big dealerships buying smaller ones. So there's so much connection going on right now. So I can speak from experience just going through this with on the lending side. So when Mitsubishi bought us, we were two of the companies they bought were transportation companies that were acting independently. And we each had kind of our place, some overlap, but definitely a little bit different. And when we merged together, it really helped create something really good, because what you do is, in the beginning, you've got two separate sides, like whose philosophy is going to win out, who's doing this process right. Are we going to take more of our stuff or their stuff? It was the you and the, them, definitely every conversation. And it took a while and a lot of heated debates. But what it does is it really helps make companies more efficient. There were a lot of redundancies. We had to figure out how we're going to integrate everything. and you start questioning everything. So the things that are easy are, you guys are doing that great, better than we are. Let's do that. We're doing this better. But the hard part is when you think you're doing something better than they are, and trying to figure out what's going to happen when you merge these companies together and these connections. And really, it makes you a better company by examining, okay, why are we doing it this way? Why are you doing it that way? What makes sense? And maybe coming up with something totally different. And that's all about innovating and just trying to be the best. So a lot of feedback we're using. We asked a lot of customers, so getting those connections, and our dealers, which are our dealers, feedback, and then just figuring out what's best. Because if we sit there and try and do the same thing, we're never going to grow, and we need to really grow. So a lot of mergers going on right now.
Again, connected and moving forward and growing. I think that finding those strengths within those companies, as you noted, is really important, and being able to acknowledge what you can learn from others who might have a different way of handling something, or may have had a different approach to look at, is a very important thing to be able to do. um, Now we're kind of have a better understanding of our current situation and where we've come from and where we're at right now. We know growth also means change, and change has been discussed in many of these comments so far. When we're working together outside of the box to solve problems, we know we can make it happen. And change really works to create opportunities. It provides room for those partnerships. What are some more of the opportunities to grow together that each of you are really kind of seeing right now? Jennifer, I want to start with you on this one.
Yeah, so I think for me, it's just continuing to kind of be supporters of each other, to kind of help to, those problems, those collaborations really. I think you can't stop supporting each other within the industry, but then also building up others who are joining the industry, right? Like the room there's room to grow. There is endless possibilities within the commercial vehicle space. So I think just being continuous supporters of each other, but then also, like I said at the beginning of my intro, it's like once those people get in and they get it, we should be building them up and continuing to give them that space to grow within the industry, because I think there are endless possibilities and ways that we can just it's a challenging and uncertain time, but I think we can never stop growing ourselves, both personally and from a business perspective. And I think that will help us then, at the end of the day, collaborate and really find those out of the box solutions, and challenges that come up will have better solutions because we've worked together and supported each other.
Dania, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, first of all, I'd like to echo what Jennifer just said. Um, when you think about, those ACEs pillars and electrification and even the shared aspect, but going back to the electrification, fleet decision makers, they've been managing their fleets with ICE vehicles or diesel vehicles, and they can do it in their sleep, right? They're so good at what they do, and they have so much experience that managing a conventional or traditional fleet, like I said, is something that they can do in their sleep. So now enter an entirely new powertrain, if you will, that is there is no history. There is no spreadsheet to go back to and look at some curve. It doesn't exist yet. So they're on one hand, if they choose to go it alone, they're going in blind. So it's what Jennifer said. Lean on partners, lean on your OEM rep, lean on your fleet management folks, lean on your dealers, lean on each other, because there's going to be somebody out there that has experience with integrating an electric medium duty truck. There's a ton of pilot studies with class 8 electric vehicles, right? Um, as far as the S part of ACEs, this shared, this is a concept of being able to share your asset when you have underutilization and you have uh, part of your fleet available that you can rent out, and it can be a revenue generating stream. For most fleet companies, this is a foreign concept. But there is what we're seeing in our research, there's a sliver of fleet companies that have been actually sharing their fleet, their trucks for a handful of years. You will always have early adopters. You will always have the innovators who are willing to take on that risk, and we're seeing it there. But that is an example of just being open to something new. Be open to trial and error. Be open to experimenting within reason. Lauren, it's back to that balance again. Try something, but balance it. But lean on partners, because there is somebody out there that has experience with sharing part of their fleet, sharing their asset. There is somebody out there that does have, I don't know, a year or two experience transitioning to electric vehicles, even if it's with a class one sedan or minivan. They've done it, and there's learning, and you don't have to go it alone, I guess, but that hasn't always been the case.
One thing that I've learned, fleet managers can talk. They like to talk. They can talk a lot. We have an editorial advisory board for Work Truck, and we meet quarterly. And they're not afraid to share their challenges, their successes, the phone number of the person who helped them. They might be competing fleets, but the connectivity that they have, the relationships that they've built, and the goals of just improving fleet, I think, as a whole, really does outweigh. So your comments on, ask questions, lean on your partners, I think is absolutely important, and something that I definitely see is very different in this industry than some of the others. They will talk, they will share, and word spreads. Word of mouth is very, very big, especially in the fleet management side of things. Anne, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I was going to say for us, we've never seen so many in the past year, just partnerships that we're developing with dealers. And they are our true partners where we're making national programs. We're finding out different ways how to do business by really digging in there. What are your pain points? And in this industry right now, with what's going on in this environment, how can we both make money and how can we be profitable? So we are doing things we never ever thought we'd do before. Where actually some of the dealerships are taking on some of the risk with us, and then they get the extra profit as well because they need to make money. So if they're willing to maybe share on some residual risk, maybe with some of the EV equipment that's out there right now, where a lot of lenders don't want to, they have no idea what something's going to be worth 5 years from now. So if they're willing to help us potentially, for example, market that equipment when the lease comes up, something like that, and we can kind of do a shared risk and profit. So we can go ahead and have some lower payments now, hoping that this equipment will be worth so much at the end. And then if we make a nice profit on it, they'll get a piece of that as well. So just totally out of the box things that we've never done before, we're doing right now.
I love it. Out of the box thinking is really important. I think you can't just rest on what worked yesterday. With everything changing, it's probably not going to be what's going to work the best. Today it might work, but maybe it's not working the best for what you need. You know, I can't talk about growth with this group of ladies without talking about the growing number of absolutely incredible women in our industry and really looking at the role that diversity and inclusion is playing in fostering a more dynamic work environment. Recently, I was at an event and there was a small thing for what would seem to most people. It was a lip gloss on a counter. And one of the things that really stood out to me for this particular event was we didn't know whose it was. And while it seems small, there's been so many events that I've been to in the past where if it wasn't mine, it was clearly yours. I knew who that lip gloss belonged to. And I feel in the past several years, seeing that growth and being able to be at an event where something as simple as a lip gloss sitting on a counter and not knowing who it belonged to is such a big sign of the growth and the change that we've been seeing. Again, evidenced by the panel that we've got here today. I'd really love to get a little bit of insight from all of you on what role diversity and inclusion really plays and how we can really promote diversity within teams and organizations in each of our areas of thought. I'm going to throw this one at you, Anne, and let's
Okay.
see what role is diversity and inclusion really playing in fostering this work environment, and what can we do to promote more of it?
Yeah. So this is an excellent area to talk about, Lauren, because I've been not in this particular industry, but I've been in sales for almost 40 years. And I have had my share, think about back in the 80s, of I've always been in men industry for some reason. I don't know why, but it was tough. And right now, there's such a change right now, and it's so refreshing to see women in this industry and people of color. Um, there's so many benefits for them. So first of all, as a company, you're going to need innovation. You're going to need people. You don't need to see the same type of people. You need new, fresh blood. I came to finance 4 years ago. I was never in this industry, never in trucking, but having just a fresh perspective on things and looking and asking those same questions I said before, like, why do you guys do it like this? I don't know. We've always done it like this. Well, let's think about a better way to do it. So, just bringing different ideas to the table, you're going to get that when you start to reach across and have different people in your company. It has to start from the top. So the top has to be on board with this, the top leaders of the company, and then you can go from there. The next thing you want to do is, make sure that you have start small. Just some few goals of how you're going to include diversity in the company, and you have people accountable for that, and you have updates, and then you celebrate when things happen. And I know our particular company right now has a goal to have a certain number of women in leadership. So we'll be tracking that. We'll be figuring out how we're going to do that. And then when you have a company that has a lot of different types of people, you can also recruit better. You have a better talent pool because there's so many more people you can draw from, and you're not just looking for that same type of person that's been in your company forever. So I'm excited about what's happening right now, and I just hope it keeps getting better and better.
Thank you. And Jennifer, what are your thoughts on this fostering, diversity and inclusion in our work environments today?
Yeah, no, I think what you mentioned about an event and kind of previously how underrepresented women might have been is very telling of just how many strides we've made in automotive and in commercial vehicles in particular. I can think back to several events where I was like, wow, I'm not going to have to wait in line in the bathroom. That's a benefit. But I think, going beyond, thinking both you and Ann had hit on it of this, like, just we can't keep doing things the way we've always done them. And I think that even goes into kind of managing your talent pipeline, building up your workforce. It's diversity, it's inclusion, but it's also thinking about the new generation that's coming into the workforce. There's been a huge amount of retirements and institutional knowledge that's left our industry in the last couple of years. And the younger generation is coming up, but they need different ways to be spoken to. They want to apply for a job in a very different way. They interview in a different way. They have a very different need set that they need met. So I think there's a lot of that, like learning and growth. And Anne said it has to come from the top, right? Like you have to have your entire leadership team bought into this new mindset in order to be inclusionary for both different gender, for people of color, but also for the next generation, because everybody's kind of coming to the table with their own unique needs and things that need to be met. And I think there's a space for them here in commercial vehicles. And I think that's the absolutely amazing thing about our industry, though, because while it seems like we've done the things we've always done, I think our industry is open and there's space for every single person. And I think there's opportunities and growth. And I think that, again, goes back to that whole common thread among this whole thing. We're not going to grow if we don't change and figure out how we include everybody on that journey.
I love that. We're not going to grow if we don't change. That's a fantastic quote to think about right there. Dania, what would you have to add to that?
Well, this reminds me of an experience I had many, many, many years ago, working with a male engineer with one of the OEMs, and I remember him saying they were designing something to do with the door handle, And I remember this gentleman saying, you know, if I was not working with my colleague, a female engineer who has long fingernails, we could have very well misdesigned this door handle. And he seemed really surprised that they could have missed it. He was very appreciative, and the light bulb went off that you need to have more than just male engineers designing something, right? So, you know, intellectually, we all realize that, yeah, we're very skilled at our jobs, we know how to do it, and I'm an engineer and I can engineer it. But sometimes it takes a hands-on experience such as that, because they really could have missed the mark. And if it wasn't for the female engineer with long fingernails that um, highlighted the imperfection of the design, then that certainly would have went to the customer, right? And you know, 50% of the population is female. So it just reminds me that while our life, I think our work life would be easier if we all shared the same perspective and we all shared the same capabilities and experiences, because nobody really likes resistance, right? Nobody really likes confrontation. Our brains are programmed just for streamlining, just we're habitual. But that leads to poor innovation. It leads to poor products. So it we have to be diversified. You know, Jennifer talked about the turnover as far as ages, right, in our industry. We're got an older generation that's retiring, that's getting ready to retire. We have a shortage of truck drivers. You know, how are we going to attract people into the industry, that younger generation? And that's going to take some effort. That's going to take some targeting recruiting, and that's going to require not saying anything that isn't true, but I think highlighting the truth about this wonderful industry, right? Catherine had mentioned, I think, in her opening statement this morning about, you know, what an integral part this industry is to the economy. And we move products, we move people's stuff. It's such an integral part of everybody's life. But unless you're in the industry, just like anything else, we tend to take that for granted. So if we can create a narrative and demonstrate how important this industry is, that is going to attract a younger group. You know, I think we all want to be a part of something bigger than ourselves, and I think we all want to be a part of something that is of value, and we can contribute and accomplish something. And that's the narrative that we need to get with with sorry. That's the narrative that we need to get to attract a more diversified group within this industry. It won't happen overnight, but if we don't try, if we don't start, then it's certainly not going to be on an acceleration curve.
And I think, nailed it. We are seeing a generational shift. I think many of our businesses, you can look around yourself and see several generations working together in one place. And if we can really find ways to work together and to learn from each of the strengths that each generation has, whether it be the ability to communicate, the technological advancements, a different way of seeing something that's been done a certain way for so long. We can all grow from there. And I think it is beyond simply gender, but it goes to your backgrounds, it goes to age. There's so much more in the concept of inclusivity when it comes to business. And I know we're still, I think a long way from having to wait in line for the bathroom. We are making some big strides, and there's some fantastic organizations that I absolutely can't, ignore right now. And I think, Work Truck Solutions, for one, having all of us here on this panel to share our stories and our backgrounds with everybody. The Black Fleet Network, AFLA's Women in Fleet Management. There are some fantastic organizations out there right now really working to push and promote inclusivity and diversity within commercial businesses and fleet. So definitely take some time and look those up. Looking at this again, so, from events like this one and content produced by, Bobit and NTEA, research and support from Escalent and Mitsubishi HC Capital, there's a lot of opportunities to grow and to learn. But what can we do today, right now, to make some change and to do some difference? What advice can we share with our audience to really act on so we can continue to grow and keep that momentum going into the future? Dania, I'm going to bring it back to you on this one.
Well, they talked a little bit about this in the welcoming remarks and in the early sessions today. It's about being open to change. Change is scary, of course, um, but as we've talked about, there are new business models, there are new partnerships, and um, Jennifer said it best. If you're not willing to change, then you're not willing to grow, and of course, you have to grow to stay alive. So it's about being open to change. It's about leaning on your partners, as we've talked about. But it's something that I've also learned in the last, I don't know, 10 or 15 years, kind of where my industry, my market research data analytics industry has been disrupted by technology, that the technology companies out of nowhere, these tech companies come in and they have these wonderful platforms and they're serving people and there's automation and it's like my head is spinning. But that disruption is what makes your business better if you're open to change. And I had a colleague say to me one day, Dania, you better just get comfortable being uncomfortable. And, maybe it's a cliche, but that really is what it's about because technology is changing so quickly. Our industry is changing so quickly for a variety of from a variety of factors. There's a lot of catalysts going on, but you got to be open to change. And something else I learned: fail fast. That means a spirit of experimenting. It's a spirit of trying, but don't linger. Try new things. Make quick decisions. Do you need to? Because nothing ever goes exactly as planned, right? But get in there and try. Do you need to adjust the planning a little bit? Do you need to completely pivot? Maybe things really wasn't what you anticipated. Do you need to pivot? Do you just need to make a little bit of adjustment? Or do you need to say, we've tried it, it's time to abandon, and you go on to the next thing? But you have to do that quickly. Historically, I guess in the old days, we had the luxury of time. And that luxury of time is no longer with us. So fail fast. Don't be afraid to try. And this is going to attract the younger generation because they're not fearful of failure like my generation, right? Nobody liked to fail and you were made to feel bad if you failed and you screwed up and the world's coming to an end. The young people don't see it like that anymore. And if we're going to attract a younger generation, they're more likely to embrace failure because if you're not failing, then you're not trying. Therefore, you're not growing. Therefore, you're not getting any better. But we don't have the luxury of time anymore. So fail fast.
With risk comes the opportunity and possibility of failure. But I think that that's a fantastic piece of advice, to fail fast. I see that as the next motivational poster with the cat hanging from this,
Right.
branch. It just says fail fast over the top of that. But it makes a lot of sense. Before I move on, as we're wrapping up, getting kind of a little closer, just a reminder to our audience, if you do have any questions, make sure you get those in so I have a chance to ask them of our fantastic panel. I can ask them a million questions for the rest of the day. Want to make sure we get a chance to answer anything that you guys might have. Continuing on the advice, Anne, what would you have to add to that?
That was great advice. I would say look within your own company, whether you're a fleet manager or a dealership in the work truck space, and ask yourself, what is my environment here? And is it open to foster innovation? And what I mean by that is, are you asking people in the company, everybody, for different ideas, and really setting up a nice environment that people can feel free to throw out ideas without being judged or without, having some snapback at them. So what I've seen work really well in some of the other companies I worked with is that from the top there is some clear intent or purpose of what you want. What is a goal that your company wants? Okay, we know we have to change, we know we have to grow. What does that mean? Does that mean we want to cut expenses and be more efficient? Does that mean we need to find new streams of income with kind of what we have here in the company? And if that's your goal, then set up some meetings and include everybody. Put some different committees together. And I am talking about receptionists to accounting to everybody, because there's a lot of good information out there. And ideas don't just come from the top, and they don't come from one or two people in a little closed session. This is something that evolves over time. Have some of these meetings, I'm telling you, are the most fun meetings I've ever been at, where you sit people around a table, you have them prep some ideas that they might have. When they do, give an idea, present an idea, no judgment, no bad talk about it. And all you can do for 5 or 10 minutes is ask that person questions. And what that does is, not only are you, sort of evolving that idea, and it might be a terrible idea, but you don't want to discourage people from speaking up. And that's what I talk about, having a nice, trustful, respectful environment. But then somebody in that department might think of something else like, oh, I don't see it working over there, but it might work over here. Or how about we do it this way? And the best ideas are collaborative, and they're just built on, and it takes a long time to really develop a good strategy. But you need a lot of ideas and a lot of people. You'd be surprised where that comes from. So that's what I would do. And I would incent your employees as well. So figure out a way to incent them to be creative and follow up on that. And I think that's one way that I think people can right now, is look at their own company and ask for some help from their employees.
No, I love it. You don't know how much your different parts of your business impact the different employees and what they
Right.
might be involved in or see from that outside perspective when you're managing something. Is it user friendly? And I think that you're right, from backgrounds and how they work with your solution. People are going to see it from a different point of view. That's some fantastic advice. Jennifer, would you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think just from my kind of perspective is I take advantage of resources that you have available to you, whether those are, educational resources, learning opportunities, because you can't stop growing. I feel like I learn something new about commercial vehicles every single day. Just when I think I figured it out, there's something else that's a nuance or an addition to that. So I think always be learning, always take advantage of the resources that are available. I think there's a lot of great things available to us in the digital space. Obviously, technology is providing us with different avenues to get that information every day. But then also take advantage of the institutional knowledge in your own company. You can learn so much from the people that you work with if you have a mentorship with someone that's older or younger than you, just to kind of learn from their perspective. But just finding a way to kind of capture what's the knowledge that you have within your company. And I think just kind of that always be learning in this industry, especially in this time of transformation. You can't learn enough about kind of what's out there and what's to come.
Thank you. So, in
Oh,
our club, oh,
Lauren, I was just going to piggyback on to what
please.
Jennifer was saying. Um, when you think about electrification or even some of these new business models that some of the utility companies are offering, as far as giving credits back on used energy and things like that, there is a lot of information. Is a lot of education that's required, and so I just wanted to say, don't procrastinate. Right. It kind of takes me back to the whole ELD thing. So, a few years ago, several years ago, time goes by so quickly. Um, don't procrastinate. I know that it can be overwhelming. And even though we're encouraging companies to rely on partners and such. Things are changing quickly, and the regulations around our quest to go to EVs and zero emission vehicles, and um, the regulations, particularly in California, but other states are going to be adopting the California led regulations, and things can be complicated, things can be complex. And yes, you probably want to bury your head in the sand and pretend it doesn't exist. They're not going away. And if you procrastinate and then you're forced to deal with the stuff at the witching hour, it's going to make things just so much more difficult. So try not to procrastinate, try to be proactive. And when you are thinking about, rolling that electric vehicle into your fleet, we are being told that it can take anywhere from 18 to 24 months to iron everything out with your utility company, the infrastructure. It's not in your best interest to wait. So, as Jennifer said, there's a ton of information, there's a ton of education. Take advantage of it all, but do it proactively and try very, very hard not to procrastinate.
I love it. That kind of brings you back to fail fast.
Oh,
Don't be afraid. Just keep giving that effort. We've got a few minutes left. I am getting some questions in from our audience. I'm going to go ahead and switch gears for a minute, see if we can answer one of those. So, one of the questions we just got is, thinking of small business buyers, is there an area where you see that technology can really help them? And looking at the mid-sized companies, are those the same areas or are they completely different? So looking at tech and how that can kind of help, does anybody have any insight that they might want to share on that?
I think just at a high level is, some of the new technology like AI, it can be scary. There can be a lot of unknowns with it, but I think it's just being kind of like leaning in and kind of just learning about it. And if there are ways that it works for your business, I think you should take advantage of it. I don't think you should see it as like necessarily an enemy, but maybe as, be cautiously, looking into things and seeing what's out there. Because there certainly are advantages that those technologies can offer from a productivity and a resource perspective. So I think, be cautious, but I would say, be a be mindful of what's available to you out there, and you never know, how AI could maybe help with some resourcing or some productivity. But don't see it as an enemy or don't be fearful of it, because I think, those technologies are just going to become more and more prevalent. So I think adapting and kind of seeing how they fit your business model is probably the way to go versus just shutting the door and saying, nope, not even going down that road.
That's a great point. I think, looking at AI, Chat GPT is one example. As a journalist and a content creator, when that became a bit more of a thing, it was terrifying on a lot of levels. But when we really looked at it as to how we can use it to help us, we started to look at some prompts and some of the things that AI can do on a time saving side of planning, prioritizing, getting a list, kind of looking at things is really helpful, but with some definite caveats that there's some analysis side of things and some interesting aspects of it that are definitely a challenge. I think I asked it to write a bio on myself, and I know myself pretty well, and the bio is not accurate by any stretch. So I feel pretty safe myself, but there have been many places where even I've been able to utilize AI and looking at it from a fleet perspective and a business and commercial vehicle perspective, that it's actually been pretty helpful. So that's a really good point. Any other insight on how kind of we can look at technology to help us out moving forward?
Well, Lauren, I was just going to say, our research shows that the larger sized companies tend to be the leaders in the adoption of technology, whether it's telematics or whether it's the use of AI and automated processes, for a variety of reasons, right? They have more vehicles that they need to manage. They may have more resources. So those larger sized companies are kind of leading the adoption curve. However, at the end of the day, regardless of how many vehicles you're running in your fleet or the size of your company, however you want to define that, technology allows you to improve, right? So it's a problem solver. So if you are looking to increase your efficiency or your productivity or to reduce downtime or to be proactive around service, technology will allow you to improve your business performance. So that's relevant to a small size company as well as a large size company. That I think the key is making sure that you align that technology solution to your business, of course, how you're using those vehicles, and making sure that what whoever's selling you that technology understands your business, right? This is not a one size fits all. Um, and I think it was your colleague earlier. That service provider needs to be asking a million questions to make sure they understand your business, your vehicles, and make sure it's the right solution for you.
I love it. Oh, go ahead. Did you add something to add?
Oh, Lauren, I know we're out of time. I was going to say, just find somebody, especially small business, that you admire. They're successful, they're doing well, and start networking. If you need an introduction, I'm sure a lot of people will introduce you to people, and that's the best way, especially if you're smaller, to find out who's who's doing it well and what's working for them.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you, ladies, for helping me out and presenting this session on growing together. I hope everybody got something out of this. And stay tuned for your next session at the Work Truck Solutions Commercial Fall Vehicle Summit. Thank you so much.